These bugs are so big, they look like they came straight out of a horror movie. From prehistoric giants to real-life monsters still crawling today, these are the 15 biggest insects ever found on Earth. But before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and here's a challenge. Can we hit 1 million subscribers this year? With your support, I believe we can make it happen. Let's begin.
Hercules beetle. Although not officially the largest of beetles, that prize goes to the Goliath, the Hercules beetle is not some puny little insect. These colossal creepy crawlies can grow to the size of an adult man's hand, which is just the titchiest bit alarming, especially when you chuck in the fact that these creatures are sporting rather alien-esque sets of horns that will work in tandem with a second set to form a kind of claw. Yikes! The females don't have horns, unfortunately, and they tend to be a bit smaller as well. However, they can give off such strong vibes that if a male of the species is set just in the general vicinity of a female, they can seek her out and immediately orient towards her. She gives off such a powerful pheromone that she's utterly irresistible to those little guys. Out there in the world, there is such a thing as the beetle enthusiast trade. To us uninitiated, it kinda sounds like a bizarre and mysterious cult, but these bug fans are especially fond of the magnificent Hercules beetle and will happily part with up to $700 for the privilege of getting their bug-loving fingers on one for their collection. Giant walking stick. Now, this insect may indeed have the honor of being the biggest of all North American walking sticks, but that doesn't really make it a monster-sized creature. Just how big is the so-called giant walking stick? Well, it's actually between 3 and 6 inches. That's nothing to write home about. In fact, you could even wonder what it has to be boasting about. These insects are called walking sticks on account of their shape and general similarity to, well, a stick. And the walking part is due to the fact that they walk. It's fascinating, I know. The reason that these insects try to make themselves look as much like a stick as possible is because they're really slow walkers and couldn't get away from a predator if they tried. So their best bet's simply to stand still and pretend to be a boring old twig until any potential aggressor loses interest and goes off in search of something decidedly juicier. Giant African stick mantis. These are the kinds of praying mantis that some people like to keep as pets. They do seem to have weirdly characterful faces, that much is true, but what kind of pet-like interactions do you really get with a cannibalistic insect? Seriously, if you do know, please tell me all about it in the comments below. What is the appeal of these insects as household companions? Well as being a favorite amongst domestic insect keepers, giant African stick mantises are also the largest of the mantis family. These mantises can regularly grow several inches long or more, with the longest one on record being a little over a half foot. They generally live for at least a year once they reach maturity, so not quite the same as a pet dog, but perhaps more like a fairground goldfish? Anyways, these unusual insects have some distinctive features. They are stick mimics, which means that they're perfectly adapted to camouflage themselves amongst the branches of a tree. This is a useful feature to help the mantis hunt prey and avoid predators. The creepy insects look as though they've been designed for a science fiction film. Their alien-eyed heads and intensely sinister bodies, with all their terrifying gestures, make the mantis perfect nightmare inspiration. Add to that the female mantis's famous proclivity towards postcoital cannibalism, and it's no wonder that these incredible insects have a little bit of a reputation. Yeah, that's right, in case you didn't know, the female will mate with a male, and then once the deed is done, she'll bite his head off and devour him. It turns out that this seemingly psychotic behavior may actually make it more likely that the mantis will reproduce. Well, the female one, obviously, because, the dude is dead. Hedge grasshopper. These massive grasshoppers are the largest of their kind and can be found in that country which contains a particularly unusual and oftentimes deadly selection of animals, Australia, because where else? This supersized bug measures between 1.5 and 3 inches, with the female of the species being even larger. There are occasionally hedge grasshoppers that reach up to 4 inches long, but these fatties are much more rare, probably on the account of the tastiest of the insects to many predators. They're considered particularly irresistible to mantises and lynx spiders. The hedge grasshopper is distributed across the north of the whole of the mainland of Australia, where it's found living generally in solitude. These unsociable sorts don't really ever get together with other grasshoppers, except it would seem to cause a public nuisance. So rather, like a group of disgruntled hooligans, they are lonely creatures. But when there's an opportunity for a spot of collective mindless destruction of a crop, say a coffee berry, well, then that's when these huge insects get organized. Together, a small gang of hedge grasshoppers can inflict serious and rapid damage, much like a determined gaggle of antisocial misfits with mischief in mind. Scolopendra gigantea centipede. The catchily named Scolopendra gigantea centipede is mostly found in the tropical and subtropical forests of the northern regions of South America. This is officially the largest of all centipedes on the planet, so it should really get a crown or even a chufty badge, or at least some kind of certificate from our old friends with the clipboards at the Guinness Book of World Records. However, these creatures are just too busy skulking around in the leaf litter and rotten wood of the rainforest to be that bothered about being in the record books. These massive centipedes are often over 12 inches long and use their super size to hunt some pretty large prey. Amongst the giant centipede's favorite dinners are other insects, especially spiders, scorpions, and millipedes, and they also enjoy some mammals like mice and bats, and even the odd bird or frog. This also gives you a clue just how big these things can get. And before you think that they are only really preying on such miniature creatures, well, humans aren't exactly entirely safe from these gigantic insects because they have a venomous bite, which is a danger to people. There's even been a death recorded as a result of a bite by one of these bugs, so that's almost reassuring then, isn't it? Queen Alexandra's birdwing. This is an extremely rare tropical butterfly, most remarkable for its massive size. It's found in the tropical rainforests of Papua New Guinea. However, their habitat is only in a very small area, possibly only about 450 square miles, and it is shrinking all the time because of deforestation due to palm oil production. These big butterflies are named birdwings, partly on account of their wingspan, and partly because of their wing movement. These extraordinary insects can have a whopping wingspan of up to 30 centimeters, which is 12 inches. And what is that thing eating to become so big? Well, when they're a caterpillar, these insects eat a lot. We all know that story. But they mainly eat a particularly long-leafed vine. Then, when they're fully grown, beautiful butterflies, they're restricted to eating daintily with their proboscis, which is a kind of tube tongue that they unroll to sip liquid just like posh ladies. Oh, and a cool thing about these big beauties, they're actually poisonous. They get their poison from a toxic pipeline plant, which offers them a degree of protection as a species. Anything that nibbles on a birdwing will get a particularly unpleasant tummy ache and will earn a valuable lesson not to eat brightly colored flappy things, even though they're oh so pretty. Giant weta. Almost extinct, the wetapunga is a huge insect, a kind of flightless cricket that was found to have survived only on the island of Little Barrier off the coast of New Zealand's North Island. These amazingly rare insects are thought to have been victims of a messed up food chain where they were overrun by predators. In the first half of the 20th century, there were loads of feral cats on Little Barrier Island. These cats controlled the population of rodents, especially the Polynesian rat. So when people came along and decided to rid the island of its feral cat population, they then basically invited the rats back in to go wild. The rats gobbled the weta all night long, and then during the day they were eaten by saddleback birds. It's no wonder these guys nearly packed it all in. Then, as usually happens, some people figured out what was going on and decided to get rid of the rats. The numbers of weta slowly increased, and the insect has now been introduced in other predator-free environments. But I don't know, all this fiddling about with the food chain seems kind of risky to me. Are we going to be overrun by a ton of gigantic insects someday? The giant darner dragonfly. This beautiful and enormous dragonfly is the largest in the whole of the United States. The most striking feature of it is its bright blue and black coloring, so they're easy to recognize. Oh, and they're also huge. You can't miss them anyways. These big flying beasts hang out mostly in the southern states and can generally be found in Arizona, California, Colorado, Nevada, and New Mexico, preferring small streams and arid climates, as this is the best kind of environment to protect their eggs and then their young from predators, as well as being the most comfortable temperature and humidity level for their biological makeup. Giant darner dragonflies mainly eat a diet of other smaller insects. In particular, they're partial to mosquitoes and will share the same habitats, so this makes perfect sense, as well as ants and flies that hang out near ponds. The main predator of the dragonfly is the hummingbird. Well, that's when they make it into adulthood, that is, because their larvae are often scoffed with wild abandon by any fish that gets the opportunity to snarf them down, and most aquatic insects are fans of this tasty snack as well. It really is a wonder that any of them ever make it at all. The Atlas moth. With a wingspan wider than a human hand, it's little wonder that the Atlas moth is considered amongst the very largest of all moths. But despite its significant size and the imposing impression it makes, the Atlas moth has some distinct design flaws. These massive moths have no facility for eating. That's right, once they've busted out of their cocoons, they can no longer ingest food, and therefore they're not long for this world. The caterpillar is, like all hungry caterpillars, a greedy and seemingly insatiable creature that will gorge itself silly until it pupates. Then, well, the last stage of the Atlas moth is one of their inevitable and most instant demise. That's a bummer. But while they do hang around in that brief and extravagant moment, Atlas moths are massive. Their wingspan is often an astonishing 12 inches, and that's just the far edges of the total surface area of these impressive insects, which can be as much as 62 square inches. Even the caterpillars are big, and they can be over 4.5 inches long while they stuff themselves in the stage before they begin their transformation. But they do need to eat, and they need to eat a lot. It literally has to last them for the rest of their short lives, which is a heady 1 to 2 weeks, by the way, during which time these hedonists just lay around, preserving their precious energy reserves, and then they mate as much as possible in order to lay their eggs before the reaper comes a-knockin'. Actaeon beetle. And here we have another big beetle for your enjoyment. This time it's the Actaeon beetle, another contender for biggest beetle crown. This thing measures about 4.7 inches long and 2.8 inches across, with the largest specimens measuring about 5.4 in length. So while they're not microbugs, perhaps they're not the very biggest that we've ever seen. They are, however, the heaviest, so that's something to get excited about. Huzzah! In fact, at a maximum recorded weight of 8.04 ounces, these creatures are apparently not only the heaviest beetle, but also the heaviest of all the insects. So that is an achievement after all. Perhaps the most interesting thing about these beetles is their name. They're named after Actaeon from the Greek mythology, a famous hero no less. The story of Actaeon is a brutal one in which the hero goes off from being the hunter to being transformed into a stag and then being hunted and torn apart by his own hounds. That's essentially the gist of the story of Actaeon, so just how these beetles came to be given his name is still quite a bit of a mystery. The giant burrowing cockroach. Oh, lovely. The world's heaviest cockroach. Now surely this is what we've all been waiting for. The chunky, broad-bodied, giant burrowing cockroach measures up to around 3 inches long and can live for up to 10 years. Some people have even been known to keep them as pets. Again, this is another weird creature that can be found in Australia. The giant burrowing cockroach hangs around in the open forests of northern Queensland, where they build burrows in the soil and set up permanent homes. This is where they do everything, from bearing their children, sometimes up to 30 at a time, to bringing up their young and then repeating the cycle over again. Although these big shiny brown insects are a bit on the icky side, they're also fascinating and valuable members of the forest ecosystem. The way they maneuver and utilize the soil is part of the effective recycling of the natural dead matter that becomes the rich soil of the forest floor. They build their burrows and chambers beneath the ground and then return to the surface at night to forage for dry leaves. This action is essential to the health of the whole ecology of the area, which is kind of amazing when you think about it. Even the lowliest creature has their role, and nothing is without value. Titan beetle. At about 6.5 inches long, the Titan beetle is bigger than your average bug. Oh, this is a very big bug indeed. But strangely, for something so obviously massive, very little is actually known about these creatures and their habits. Titans live in the humid, wet atmosphere of South American rainforests. They're able to fly, but are too heavy to take off from the ground, so these massive beetles have powerful legs that are built to climb trees. Then they clamber up to a height before launching themselves into flight. Although there's still a whole load of mystery that surrounds the Titan, it's believed that when the weather is at its hottest and most moist, they will take flight and look for a mate. The Titans seem to do this by following the scent of pheromones, which these bugs all release into the air for attracting a mating partner. But when it comes to the larvae of these colossal critters, the mystery then deepens. There have been no known sightings of the Titan beetle grub. No humans have any idea what they look like, or even where they may even be found. There's speculation, though, that the larvae must be hidden inside of decaying wood, which they feed on, possibly for several years before reaching maturity and becoming a fully fledged beetle. In the unlikely event that you're wandering the rainforest and happen upon a Titan beetle, be warned. These things do bite, and they do it really hard. Their extremely strong jaws are able to deliver a nip that can snap a pencil in half. Giant water bugs. Being known as a water bug, even a giant one, sounds innocuous, but don't be fooled. These insects have some fairly unpleasant and downright murderous habits. They are, in fact, stone-cold killers with a truly disgusting eating style. Giant water bugs live in freshwater marshes, ponds, and pools in many places around the world, and their preferred spot is to be nestled in amongst the layers of vegetation just below the surface of the water. Oddly enough, though, for a bug, these guys are ambush predators and will lay in wait for something tasty to just wander by, and then they'll attack, grabbing hold of it with their pincer-like appendages and then inject the unfortunate prey with their special sauce of venomous digestive saliva. This unpleasant cocktail gets to work liquefying the internal organs of the prey so that the giant water bug can simply slurp out all the delicious goop straight out of the carcass. No chewing necessary. These bugs are actually capable of felling prey many times larger than themselves and then sucking that unfortunate creature dry. Although you as a human are not the prey of this particular bug, that doesn't stop them from delivering a nasty and decidedly painful bite if you should happen to step too close to one of them. So watch where you put your precious tootsies, because the bite may be non-toxic, but it doesn't have sting. Alligator bug. From one end, this looks like a regular old bug. You know, the usual wings and legs and standard bug stuff. But when you get to the thing's head, that's when the story changes altogether. The alligator bug, also known as the peanut bug, is apparently extremely tasty to all other animals in the rainforest, so this little critter has had to develop a few unusual adaptations in order to survive. It features a whole bunch of different defense mechanisms that are built into its buggy body. First of all, the alligator bug is a particularly well camouflaged insect with markings and coloring that help it to blend right into its environment, but it really must be so very delicious because this bug also has to utilize a lot of other safety features in order to defend itself against predators. That massive peanutty alligator-shaped head is another one of those mechanisms. It's supposed to make the little bug look like a big scary snake and not a tasty little snack. If the predator isn't fooled by that though, then the alligator bug's head isn't really where it keeps its brain and whatnot. It's actually hollow and detachable. So the theory is that if the predator bites down on this fake peanut, then the bug can use that sneaky trick as an opportunity to scarp her. But if that doesn't work, these insects have some lovely big eye patterns on their wings, so they can flash those at their attacker and hope to scare them off. If all else fails, the alligator bug is harboring a stinky secret weapon. It can release a spray of foul-smelling liquid, which is as disgustingly pungent as a skunk's noxious odor. At the very least, that has got to take the edge off of the appetite of even the most persistent of predators. Well, Goliath beetles. Now I'll tell you one thing, these are some aptly named creatures. The biggest and heaviest beetles on the planet, Goliath beetles are a creepy, crawly nightmare. If your nightmare is big fat beetles, that is. Goliath beetles are crazy strong. These bugs are believed to be able to lift a load that's 850 times heavier than its own weight. So that's quite a lot. They're native to Southeast Africa, preferring the warm climate and dense rainforests in that region. And these bugs also look pretty cool. They have a snazzy array of colors and display distinctive patterns on their backs. Male Goliaths also have a horn on their heads, which they use for fighting other males in fierce battles over the females during mating season. It can all get rather heated in the insect world when creepy crawlies are trying to make babies, although quite why any of these guys are so keen to get down to it is a bit of a mystery. The male Goliath beetle will be so very spent following mating that he actually dies from all of the excitement.
From beetles the size of your palm to dragonflies that ruled the skies, which insect freaked you out the most? Let us know in the comments. And hey, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping discoveries from the wild side of our planet. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.